Hey everyone, after the last video that I did without this microphone on, I decided that would be the last video I ever did without an auxiliary mic. For some reason the noise filter was just crap, and this thing recorded the fan on my laptop and every other vibration on the bench too, so it's just like this loud buzzing whir behind everything. So anyways, I'm working on something again today other than touch IC failure. I'm going to be doing a charge port on a Galaxy S3, which is, there's a lot of people watching my channel that are beginners where this sort of thing could really help them. There's also a lot of other people watching my channel that are like highly advanced, and they're going to look at this and be like, dude, why are you uploading that? But there's going to be some videos that I've done in the past that videos were just so crappy that I have to come back along and redo them. So this is going to be charge port on a Galaxy S3. I've did so many of these I won't have any issues doing it with one eye. Plus I can do a much better job than what you've seen in my last video. I'm going to be doing an updated video here really soon on iPhone 6 touch IC failure because I've really improved techniques on that, and a lot of the things that I said in some of those previous videos really kind of needs to be readdressed because I'm replacing both chips every time I do one of these, and I have changed the way that I flood the pads to make sure that I get all 6337 leaded solder and little to no lead-free solder. So that's all off topic. I'm going to do a S3 charge port. I'm going to do it with a microscope, and I'm going to do it now. So I'm going to change the temperature on my Hacko here a little bit. I was at 8 1/4 for the last job that I did, Galaxy S3 charge port. I'm going to be changing my station here to 750, although 8 1/4 might make it a little easier. 750 is what I'm used to for this job, so we're at 750. I am going to get out just a little bit of shielding here. I'm going to use an iPhone 5 shield just to cover the one big IC on this board. So I'm going to switch over to Microscope so that you can see what I'm seeing, if I can remember the hotkey. And then I'm going to give the microscope authority over my left eye. There we go. Now the Galaxy S3 port, this is a port that you can do without a microscope. You can't do it really well without a microscope. You really should use a microscope. But when I first started doing these, I didn't use a microscope. I used a USB microscope to do the soldering, and then I used an eyepiece, a lens I scrounged out of an old projector to do the job. So let me make sure you're in focus. Then I'm going to make sure I'm in focus. I'm just about out of range on that. I'm going to have to adjust something up here. So I'm going to go ahead and throw a shield across this IC here. You know, it's the big IC right next to the i337 charge port. And that's all the shielding that I'm going to do on this one. And I'm going to grab my PCB mount. I've had a lot of viewers, well, not a lot, but a handful of people come forward and tell me to give the Omnivice a shot. I'm not ignoring your advice. I'm just, I haven't made it to that point yet, and I have to be really selective about where I spend money. So the Omnivice is not a tool that has made it into our little electronics repair shop here. So I'm going to anchor this board down a bit here so it does not move. And the first thing I'm going to do here is flood this thing with some Kester 6337 leaded solder. I'm going to try to do this without adding any additional flux. I probably will have to add some flux. Come on, Hacko, beep. Am I even in view? Yeah, I am slightly. There we go. Flood the other side. This is going to be really hard so that you can see what I'm doing. I have to move the microscope around because I'm zoomed all the way out. I might need a bigger reducer other than that 0.5x that I got on this thing. Alright, so that's both sides of that thing flooded. I'm going to go ahead and flood all of the pins. Looks like I might actually have one here that I'm going to do without jumpers today. I wish I could zoom that out just a little bit more, but I can't. So, we're going to heat this thing up with some air. My hot air is set on 380C, and I've got the airflow set at 40%. I can't hear myself talking, but I can see the bar on the screen moving, so if I start kind of pegging it out, I feel like I'm probably over-modulating and probably getting scratchy, so overdriving, whatever you want to call it. Alright, one eye. Now one of the reasons I try to go really, really easy on the flux, that airflow at 40%, scratch that, we're going to 50. One of the reasons I go really easy on flux is because the Galaxy S3 here, it has a microphone really close to this port, and if I got one that comes in that's just like really nasty, I'll go ahead and remove the microphone because I'm going to be ultrasonic cleaning it. Alright, I see everybody starting to melt here. I used to do these with bismuth with low melt, but I don't anymore. There we go. Alright, up we go. And that is the port removed without tearing any pads. So I'm going to try to give you a tour here. Just how crappy that looks when you first take it off of there. So, you know, if you're doing one of these for your first time, don't panic. It's normal for it to look like garbage. So now I'm going to take my 6337, and I am going to go ahead and add a little bit of flux to this. And you can see right up here close to where I'm working, we have this microphone. So it's, you know, it's kind of a mile away as far as the microscope goes, but you still don't want to get any flux in it or get this thing dirty enough to where it's going to have to be ultrasonic clean, because microphones and ultrasonic cleaners, they do not agree with one another. So I'm just going to flood all this with lead again. The reason why I'm doing this is because it's going to make it easier for the wick to pick it up. Now, a lot of times when you're doing S3 ports, you will wind up with a torn pad here and there, even if you've did 100 of them, and it's just because of the torture that these things go through. Sometimes they got torn pads. So on your first few ports, you might feel like it's your fault, but you know, unless you're like really pulling on it and you can see that you tore it, if it comes off easy and then it's like, I'm missing pads, they were probably fucked up to start with. You most likely didn't do it. So let's see if we can get our wick to pick this up. Marvelous. Good enough. You can see there's a tiny bit left in that one hole. I am not going to sit here and nitpick at that. I've got a little trick that I'm going to do to clean that out. So I'm going to go ahead and grab the other side here. There it is. This is a feller that was told early afternoon, but he's already been in here this morning to check and see if it was done. I'm sure there's a couple of you out there that can relate to that experience. Watch me nitpick the hole right after I said I wasn't going to nitpick it. Nasty. Alright. See what happens when I nitpick. I just make it worse. It's one thing to nitpick, but then to nitpick with one eye, it's like you don't even have a leg to stand on. You can't even see it. How you can, you know, you really think you can nitpick? You only got one eye. Come on, Hackle. I don't have to turn you up. Alright, we're going to give that hole one more shot. That's a little too much to use my trick on. I only use the trick whenever it's a little bit. So, if I was my 6337, where would I be? Over there. Still in view? Alright, let's just do this again. Alright. A little flux. That's good enough. One little piece in there. I'm just sort of excited to be doing something other this morning other than touch ICs for the first hour and a half of the day, and then the rest of the day is touch ICs. There we go. That is clean enough. For, I almost set a new IC for a new port. So let's clean the old flux off. Really looking forward to doing some micro BGA rework with all of you that are watching this, but until I upgrade this head to simulfocal, it's excruciatingly difficult to try to do it with one eye. So until then, I will do my best. Alright, we're going to grab the dental pick. Instead of sitting here trying everything I can or blasting this out with puffs of air to get that one little tiny piece out of there, it really is just the tiniest little sliver. And I just, give it a little pick like that. That's enough for me. As long as I can get the port to sit flat on the board, that's the big thing. Because when I come through here, you know what, I am done with that shield. It's in my way. When I come through here and solder this anyway, that's all going to flow anyway. So it really doesn't matter if you've got a tiny bit of the old solder down inside that hole. What really matters is being able to get the new port flat on the board. And there we go. So if this is your first one and you got a little bit of a scuffy there, don't feel bad about it. That shit, it's gonna happen. The Galaxy S3 is a really good. It's a really good job to start with if you're practicing this. It's not so big that you can just easily do it without a microscope. It's not so small that you absolutely have to have a microscope, but it's a really good idea to do this one with a microscope because it's really hard without it. And they'll come back and you won't know why, and sometimes you'll wind up with shorts and you won't know why, and boy, that actually fits pretty nice. I will take it. So since I only have one hand, I'm going to add can you see where I'm at? I'm going to add a little bit of flux to two of the legs. I'm going to do opposing corners. Now my wire solder, it has enough flux to solder these, but I have to be able to hold this port in position and solder, so I need flux present, otherwise it just won't flow right. So I'm actually going to be dipping my iron in solder paste. I'm going to try to get this port on the board right where I want it. It's okay if it's not absolutely perfect, but you'll want to try to be pretty close. And I see I've got a little bit of solder in one of the holes that's keeping me from it. Now the bottom end of this board is fairly easy to break. I get them in here sometimes where people have already broke them, and then you can wind up with some really goofy problems. But alright, let's try that once more. Beautiful. Nope, that's where we're going to stay. It's lined up good enough. When I'm not doing this on camera, it's about a 20-minute job. And they turn out way better. Okay, we're still flat. And we are tacked at the top right corner. My next tack is going to be this bottom left corner, without my head in the way. Yeah, the last S3 port, last and only S3 port video I did was like a zoomed out shot with a Logitech web camera with USB 2, and it was a really bad video. So this isn't really a good video, but it's a lot better than that one. And it's probably the last S3 charge port video that I'll do, because this really is a very basic repair. It's just my last video on it sucked so bad I kind of had to go back and redo it. So STS, this is Jason. May I help you? Okay, I've got one leg left here to solder, and then I'm going to do the pins. I'm going to try to do the pins without the micro pencil, but once in a while I wind up switching to the micro pencil on those. So here's our last leg. Come on, beep. If you hold these legs long enough, I don't know if you can see it on camera here, but I'm actually watching the solder travel underneath this along the side, because the S3 port, it has a mounting point right along underneath there. This side of it kind of turned out like garbage, but very strong. I don't know if I got it underneath on that side or not, so a little bit excessive on the solder, but this is definitely, I mean definitely never coming back here, because the port fell off of it, which whenever you're a beginner at this and you first start, that is going to happen to you, especially if you're using low melt to help take this stuff off of here. I used to use low melt, but I don't anymore. It's too hard to clean it up and get it clean enough to where you can have sound, sturdy, stable solder joints. So I'm going to flip this thing around, so I got all the pins at that angle, just because that's the way I'm used to doing it. I'm going to throw a bead of flux across there. I'm going to use 6337 leaded solder paste to dip my iron in. Don't know why at this point I'm dipping it in paste. This is just the way I've always done it. So let me make sure I've got that in view of the camera here, and I'm going to solder this port. I'm going to start right over here. Boom. Boom. A little more solder. Shit never goes right when you're doing a video. And these over here, these are a lot easier with the micro pencil. Okay. And there's one out here, this is our ground, and it can be a little bit of a bear to get stuck down, but okay, I'm going to hit this with some alcohol here so that maybe you can see that it doesn't look like total garbage, it only looks like a little bit garbage. Okay, I'm going to turn it up on its side here and look across it. And the other way. If I can find it. And then at that zoom level, I'm going to do it one more way the other way so you can see that these are really some sound joints. I could probably come back in here and hit these again, but I mean, seriously, at the level, that one's going to get more. At the level I'm zoomed in here, you can nitpick all day long and it'll never be perfect. So one of these didn't have much. Which one was it? That one. Okay. Beautiful. Okay. So this is a really solid Galaxy S3 charge port replacement. Now I'm going to break out the alcohol and the toothbrush and clean this up. You know, I could sit here and nitpick a little bit about the ground pin, but I don't know how long I've been at this video. I've had to stop a couple of times, and so the way I'm going to do this, I probably showed this in the first video, I'm going to take and hold this board on the microphone. I'm going to make sure my alcohol, none of this liquid makes it back into the microphone hole. I always forget to look at the other side of the board and make sure the solder is flowed all the way through. But when I use that Hakko iron and I hold it on there long enough to watch the solder spread along underneath the side of this thing, I know it's flowed all the way through. But when I first started doing them, that wasn't always the case. You'd flip it over and there'd be some nasty crap on the other side of it. And nice and flat. Okay. Oh, it's over there. Okay. Let's see what it looks like. Now that pin there probably could use a fuzz more solder on it. But it's not that bad. I'm going to flip it up here on the side and run across those pins. I never would sit and look at it this long if it was just me, but for the sake of this video and showing, this is all actually pretty dang nice. And I mean, it's a Galaxy S3. Come on, it's a fucking miracle I didn't have to put jumpers in here. I almost always wind up putting jumpers on those two. That one, pretty well everywhere you can see like a through hole via, I always wind up jumper in there, and even on the cathode there on the negative terminal, a lot of times I'll wind up laying a piece of wire in there. But this is actually really stable. Because of the lighting on this camera and the way the microscope is, it actually looks like some of those joints are concave in front of the pin, but they're not. They're actually humped up, and it's really hard. It's really hard to show that because of where the shine is. It's weird. It looks like it's a pit, but it's not. It's actually humped up instead of in. So, easy Galaxy S3 charge port. Now, I'm going to go ahead and pop this thing in a housing here, its own housing. I am absolutely confident that I don't have any shorts because I did this under microscope. When I was doing these without a microscope, practicing trying to learn, it was some really terrible experiences. I did a Galaxy Tab 3 port that was like, it worked fine. And I left it sit overnight, and I came in the next day, and I guess just the temperature changing in the building, it was enough to create a short. And I went to plug it in one last time and make sure it works, and it blew out a puff of smoke down by the charge port and melted some shit. It was a really bad experience. Since I am overly confident this is fine, I'm going to go ahead and pop the screw in this thing. A little more careful than that would be a good idea. I'm going to go ahead and pop the back on it. Do I have a charge cord here for this? Alright, so I've got a charge cord. A standard charge cube over here. Also, when I first started doing S3 ports, I would always hook them to the bench supply first, and like I'd plug it in once it got charging, and I would watch the current on the supply, and if the current fluctuated when I would move the connector or if it was in and out, then I would know something was wrong. But with the microscope, I can see clearly each and every pin, and I know each and every pin is soldered, and it's solid. They're all shiny. It's good. So if you're going to be doing this stuff, you can probably do this without a microscope, but you'll really never have that precision, or I don't know, maybe you're better at it than me. But I always wound up like doing my best to wing it and then using an eyepiece to examine it afterwards, and that was really a crappy way to go. So we got our little spinning, there it is, okay. We got our little spinning thing that you get when you plug in the charger, that goes away, and then you come up with a charging thing. Now, one other thing that the S3 can do is this long delayed charge where, or charge sense, or whatever you want to call it, where when you plug in your charger, you sit and wait, sometimes 30 seconds or a minute before it'll kick in. That's not normal behavior, and it's actually 9 times out of 10, or maybe even 100% of the time, it's being caused by the charge port itself, and it's a pin that is not making contact. I should have showed you that when I still had the board out, but if you're looking at the pin, at the charge port with the pins on top, you'll have your ground pin on the far left. The next one to the right is the one that causes that, and I might be wrong, but I'm pretty certain that's the one that causes that long delayed doot-doot charge tone. So I think I got our sound turned up loud enough where you can hear it. I'm going to unplug the charger. It's going to bitch, or it's just going to shut straight off. For the purpose of this video, I'm going to grab a charged battery so I can demonstrate that we do not have that delay. Okay, we're back with a charged battery. boot the phone up. He's going to be here again any minute to get this phone, and so I can demonstrate that this thing is just like it's supposed to be. I'm going to stuck this battery in it. This will be my last really simple job I could do with one eye for the day. Touch ICs, they're really routine, but when shit goes wrong, they're not necessarily simple. There's a lot of stuff that can go wrong, some stuff that can be really, really time consuming. So, charger in, charge tone. Charger out, no longer charging. So the ones that do that long delayed charge when you plug in your charger, they'll also do a long delay when you unplug the charger too. So here we go, charger in, charge tone. Charger out, lightning bolt's gone, we're no longer charging. Charger in, charge tone. So if you've done an S3 and you plug a charger in and it's got a really long delay, something's wrong, and there's a really good chance it's either the port itself or one of the pins. It's got a pad broken loose from the trace. So that's it for this video. Super easy Galaxy S3 charge port with no jumpers. This will be the last S3 charge port video I do because it's my second one, but the first one I didn't do with a microscope. I did it with just like a web camera pointed at it, so you really can't see anything. So that's it for this video. Thank you for watching.